Have you ever wondered what drives someone to take a bold chance and change everything? I sat down with Ee Soon Wei, the visionary entrepreneur behind APW, or A Place Where. In this exclusive interview, we delve into his journey of transforming a declining business into a thriving creative hub. Get ready to hear his story, the challenges he faced, and the vision that continues to shape the future of APW. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as you watch this video. I was very impressed with our tour right now, so I really thank you of what you have done with this overall space. And the audience maybe has seen already that space right now from the earlier video. Yeah. But tell me the history of the overall space, because I do know that was APW stands for what now and what was it before?
Sure. So APW was established in 1952, and APW meant art printing work. So traditionally and conventionally a printing company, and we were primarily book printers. And we basically printed government school textbooks for the country, we printed telephone directories, old encyclopedias, and just large size dictionaries. But everything in that form and format is all gone and moved into a phone today. When I came back to the family business about 10 years ago, I realized that the industry was sunsetting. Although the family was a pioneer in the print industry, and that led me to a very serious deliberation on what should we be pursuing to have longevity in what we're trying to achieve and what we're trying to do, to continue to be in the print industry, but the industry is sunsetting potentially, at least in the fields that we were working with, which was book printing. But packaging printing was definitely staging up, but we were not in that capacity. Then I had a realization for me at that point in time, like I came back to the family business. I was relatively quite young then, and I felt probably not as motivated to come to work because manufacturing was not my forte.
So not motivated to go into the printing business,
right? Yeah, because it's just looking very sterile. Manufacturing is not something that was sexy. I thought I would prefer to be in a space that I had something to talk about over dinner, right? Then I asked myself this question: if I wasn't so keen to come to work, how then am I going to hire a team of young people who might want to join the organization? So that is the point to say, if there was a place that I could reimagine, what would that place be like? And that whole vision about trying to set up a creative campus to basically welcome people from different parts of the community and to really spur the creative economy. Right. And the whole idea of the creative campus then led to the fact that, are there any references around? Could I find case studies or examples? Not very present in KL at that point in time, but there were some movements in Japan, in Singapore, China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. So I started traveling and I started studying spaces around these urban cities. Some spaces were large formats, some spaces were smaller formats, and I started, taking notes, and I tried to understand what worked with different spaces and why are they working and why are they not. And I basically came back and started looking at this whole movement about adaptive reuse.
Adaptive reuse.
Yeah. So kind of like repurposing spaces, but also the idea of conservation. How do you preserve? But to be fair and honest, I think APW was in a very special place because we were not physically repurposing an empty building or facility or a space. There was an existing workforce at that point in time, about 1,820 of us.
1,800?
80 to 120.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. At that point in time, when I first came back 10 years ago, there was an existing business that was ongoing, but not showing a sense of growth. And there was a legacy of the family that that you really need to address. So very, very early on, I had to learn the ropes of stakeholder management. And obviously, after the research around Southeast Asia, I found that there was a movement where people were repurposing commercial spaces, and I thought maybe we could do this in KL. And so, to be honest, the idea is not mine or not new. It's been around. It's just all about execution. And for me, the benchmark for execution at that point in time for me was, okay, let's just have better looking toilets than anybody else. Yeah, so I mean, when I wanted to repurpose a space, any part of construction or renovation was going to be very, very costly. I had to think about where to best spend my money, right?
Right.
Where would be the best place to create the best impression? And to me, the expectation of the toilets, generally public toilets, were very low, a very, very low base. If I could elevate the toilet experience in Malaysia by creating creative toilets, at least I feel that people will be talking about it. And that was a time when social media was kind of pushing more of it, Instagram coming through, Facebook, people were snapping and like having certain narratives. And So we went around redesigning toilets because our factory toilets was just such a low base, right? Yeah.
True, I get that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Now you mentioned basically when you came back that you were second or third generation, right?
Third, yeah.
And third generation, and you came back as the young, bright mind. How did you convince the founders, your family, that this is a place to go, the direction to go?
So my background was obviously I graduated university in Australia, in Melbourne, and I studied management marketing. I obviously spent some years in the corporate world, about 6 or 7 years before coming back. To be fair and honest, I honestly didn't know it took a long time to convince. I thought it was a good idea that could be executed, but then I realized that people have apprehensions because it's not been proven, right? And so in the end, we had to work our ways around whereby I can provide the entire master plan, and based on the master plan, maybe if I execute the first 15% of the plan and showcase, proof of concept, showcase sustainability, then maybe we can unlock the other phases. So you might want everything, but I realize in life that sometimes you have to introduce things in bite sizes, right?
Compromise a bit, yeah.
Yeah, compromise, and then that was where I learned very, very quickly. From a professional setting, when you work in a corporate world, things were very systematic, very structured. 5-year plan, visions were all there. But I guess when you want to enter a more entrepreneurial environment or be more enterprising, there is really no rule book, and I think it's really, number one, a clear vision, then just a lot of perseverance, and a lot of grit.
Yeah. Okay. So you got 15% first, basically speaking, is it?
I mean, in a nutshell, I showcased like one of the spaces. So I converted, for instance, the paper cutting warehouse, which is a small one, by finding the first tenant. And that was from Singapore, and it was Pulp, which is, and then from there, once that was coming around, I unlocked an event space because I had a fixed space. I needed to work on a variable space, and the variable space would then allow me to bring in dynamic clientele to kind of experience the space.
Right. But how did you get the first tenant in then? Because they had only a small space, right?
Yes. So I guess it was a convergence of a couple of things. You were obviously on your end trying to basically create a master plan and create an idea, but you also had in your mind the type of tenants that you might want. You might not necessarily get them, but you just have to imagine, right? So it's like either you're casting your own vision board, or you're just kind of mapping out, say if there was an ideal sort of tenant, what would that look like, who would that look like? And you started pitching and going around town. Obviously, we wouldn't get any of the big franchises because they were so used to being in the shopping malls, right? Because shopping malls have proven traffic and things like that. And I thought, since I'm not from the real estate background from printing, I needed to curate things that were independent and boutique and everything. So that was my strategy. No franchises. And obviously we couldn't find tenants from Malaysia first, but Singapore was earlier, and then Australia was a second. I mean, there were some strategies that we worked on to get them in, and it was proven quite successful. Yeah.
True. I was also truly impressed with the kind of clientele that you do have here right now, the different mix of different outlets, catering to different audiences as well. Do you want to share something about that?
Sure. So I think a lot of what we do is kind of curating the lifestyle and the consumption of how people will interact with the space, right? So I'm a big believer of what I call a term called like social currency, and the whole idea is that I feel that content is in the people today, and more interesting people kind of engage the space, becomes more interesting for us. So the whole question is, what do you put in the space that would attract like-minded people to come through? So F&B was a good outlet, and curating very interesting F&Bs with great narratives and great stories are very important. So if there was a coffee purveyor, what was his story, why is he here? If there was a restaurant, why would do that? So kind of bring out the founder stories in that thing. But to address the clientele that came over as much as we could control was to also try to manage the fatigue. A lot of times when people come to a space, they feel like things can be quite noisy in terms of decision making. And I know that people who's working is already having a very tough day, making many decisions. If I wanted to unwind, where would be a great place for me to unwind? So APW became the realms of curating, independent, good restaurants, creating the right environment for you to do light work, heavy things, or to hang out in social, and provide just safety and security, which is just the basic things that were important to getting a space right. Yeah.
So it's a very open space environment, right? And I like it very much. So the people, are they coming from the neighborhood here, or they come from all over KL?
So I think APW is very clearly a destination. It's kind of like insular, it's kind of standalone around the precinct of Bangsar. I think we're in a good neighborhood, but the location there is pretty much standalone. But I think people are coming primarily to either experience APWs in different ways, right? So over the years now, they come obviously for the food and drinks, for the environment, they like the design. Obviously, we try to optimize this and catalyze this by having events or doing different shows, different events. Then hopefully that will kind of like create more value in terms of exposure. Then obviously we have some digital marketing strategies that kind of get us out there as well. Yeah.
So you mentioned safety, security, and I saw the people sitting there, letting it out, doing their work, having their lunch.
Yeah.
That's the style you want to create?
Yeah, I mean that's a style that I would like to kind of experience a space that, you know, I felt that as a creative, like sometimes in your most quiet, you know, solitary moments.
That's very nice here actually, very quiet.
Yeah, solitary moments you get to, I guess, like connect. And I feel, for me at least, I believe in a strong sense of energy. So when people connect, and assuming that person has a light bulb moment or a reflection moment, that connection, it says like, I found it here. And if you found it here, would you then come back again when you want to rediscover sort of things?
I think the nice part was what I think is possible. You know, when you're in a mall, for example, you're sitting on your chair.
Yeah.
You can't just stand up and walk around, for example. I think it's actually possible here, right?
Yes.
I mean, you got no cars driving by. You are in that protected space.
Yeah.
You have the coffee shop. You can sit inside or outside, or you can have the nature directly,
Yeah.
or you can sit inside in a more cool environment. But I think it's so okay to just stand up and walk a little bit. Okay, not leaving your back behind too far, most likely.
Yeah.
But it's like tolerated that you're walking around possibly as well and have your thoughts and ideas flowing to you.
Yeah, I think it's quite a safe space, and if you come regularly enough, the tenants will also recognize you, and you become a regular. And if you're working with your laptop on station and say, I just need to run to the washroom, they understand, they'll watch out for you. Or they go like, you know, I need to take a call outside, could I just leave my stuff here? Totally fine. And if you're even like a super regular, like it's part of your routine, they probably know your coffee, how you like it in the morning. It's just
there already.
Yeah, it's just a sense of familiarity, right? The idea of, you know, having the connection. Sometimes in an urban setting, people get so busy, people are just going from one thing to another.
Right.
Hopefully, APW is a place where you can have a sense of respite, right? A time of rest before you.
You established it about 10 years ago when you came back and the transformation started, right?
Yes.
So how did it go, and especially overall with COVID hitting in between?
Yeah.
Was it a bit of a challenge for you, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, so quite interestingly, in 2019, I kind of decided that we wanted to exit the print division. I felt that the industry
Totally go out of it.
Yeah, go out of it, and I made a hard decision to flog off all the machinery, and we cleared up, obviously, in the entire space in December 2019, not knowing that COVID was around the corner.
Okay.
Yeah, and I also retired some of the workers as well, because we're entering 2020, and I think that theme at that point in time was everybody go big or go home. Go big or go home. So going big means invest, double down, you know. Go home means you take a rest, you refocus, right?
You had tenants at that point of time as well.
We did have tenants at the time, but I've always wanted to go full mainstream with what we were doing, but there was obviously the legacy issue and the certainty level, right? But as the new project was and the new ideas were coming, having more strength, there was more conviction for people to say, okay, maybe we can finally convert. So in December 19, we executed, we rested up, and then I think COVID came. I remember March 18, that was the first day of lockdown.
March 18th.
March 18, 2020, I think. I still remember we had asked the team to go back home to practice work from home for 1 week to practice.
It was COVID already or not yet?
That practice became 5.5 months. We were stuck, everything was locked, and it was really, really tough for our tenants because it was such a physical business.
And people needed to come.
Yeah, and people couldn't, and the Grab delivery was not at that speed that you know that could deliver, and the food that was normally served in dining was not ready to be packed away. So there was a really a huge readjustment for everybody at the point in time. And for us, I think, to be honest, the first couple months we were just checking on each other to see how it was. But after some time, we decided I think it's time to really take some time to spend time doing some research and try to imagine what would life be after COVID. What would space be like after COVID? And we started doing a lot of researching, and I found out that people were starting to cocoon themselves. And they wanted to just be cocooning at home, or they want to be in very small groups, and you know.
So basically, the work from home, and
Yeah.
I'm there and don't move at all anymore, and that's
Yeah.
it.
And cocooning means you're hibernating for something better, or you're gonna be giving birth to something else, right? So the whole idea was that, okay, how would then we address the fact for people to find an alternative space to home? Previously, before COVID, was alternative space to shopping malls. It was mega, noisy, inaccessible. But now what can that alternative be from home? So we then started working on the whole idea of redesigning our space to be more appreciative in that manner. So we know for a fact that we can't go with the raw industrial edgy look anymore, because it's seen unclean, unhygienic. You know, people was all about sanitization, people was all about polished and clean. So we know we had to elevate our design. So it was a huge risk for us. It cost a lot more, but it was necessary because we needed to shift the market. And I'm glad we did, because it paid off, because it looked really promising for tenants to come and join us. The second thing that we thought about in terms of our format of setting out spaces was the fact that we wanted to create spaces with semi-outdoor facilities. I knew for a fact at that point in COVID, we were really experiencing an exodus of foreign workers leaving and departing our country, because everywhere around the world was sending back non-citizens back to their home country. And foreign labor is a huge component in F&B. And the fact that if you can't hire, you can't fill up the space. So why would you need such a big space to operate your restaurants? So I started creating small format setups and semi-outdoor communal facilities to integrate the space. And that became, again, another point of reducing the fatigue decisions for tenants. Because, it doesn't cost me too much, I see the point, and there are a lot more accessibility, then they could come in. And I slowly started spending time with each of the tenants and started curating from design, concept, menu, and seeing what would work. And when we put them all together, it turned out really well for us. Yeah.
Interesting. So what was the most rewarding experience you had overall in the overall development of this creative hub?
I think my most rewarding experience is also my most challenging moments in my life. And I think, to be honest with you, I think it happened in probably year 3, year 4 of the process of I think I spent the first 2 years cleaning up the factory before even thinking about the design process. Then we started working on the design process, and we started moving, and then there were good outcomes, but they were very challenging arrival to these outcomes. There were budgetary issues, there were timeline issues, there were inconsistencies of commitment, and I had to deal with that. And it was a lot, right, for quite a young person. I could see myself sometimes just under a table, crying out, tearing out, because it's just raw emotions that you're navigating. And I think deep down I was just asking for one clear answer, like, at what point do I get some form of validation for the work that I do? At what point do I get some validation? And this segues to the actual story that there was one point in time, I think probably in 2018, Harvard GST, Graduate School of Business, the architecture school, were on a Southeast Asian study trip by Brunsfield, and they had to visit Kuala Lumpur. And in that group, some students had asked where is one place that they could interestingly visit, and APW came up. And they came to visit us. I wasn't around at the point in time, and they had a tour and checked out everything. And then after they finished the tour, they wrote in, they say, we would like to meet the person who was leading this project and to interview and have conversations. And so I met. So there were 2 China students, very well spoken, studying at Harvard, and I mean, deep down, I too wanted to go back to school, wanted to be part of the Ivy League. So that was my closest, touch gap to having the experience, because I was basically cleaning stuff up, making sure things were in order. So we had a good conversation, we kept in touch. 6-7 months down the road, I had an official email from Harvard University, because I was invited to speak at the Harvard Asia Business Conference on innovation strategy. And I mean, to me, that's as good as getting an invitation letter to study at the space, and I've never been to the US at that point in time, right? And I wanted to go, and I did go. I went for a really interesting experience, and
And that's to me on a personal level was validation to me. To be able to share about what I do. And when I did go and speak at the conference, I know they actively curate this conference, but to me it was just great to spend there for 2 weeks just being in part of the campus.
So 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the conference was a couple of days, but I extended my time there to just kind of see the city and be part of what the community was like.
Nice.
And very interesting at the panel, I was with some obviously very reputable panels, but from very first-tier countries, right? So people sitting on the boards of Toyota, people sitting on the boards of WeWork, and here I am coming from, I guess, an emerging setting. And there were questions about innovation strategy on me, but they were talking about drones at the point in time. What were your policy approach to drones? Do you think it's ethical or whatever? But then I had to explain to them actually technology is so. I think technology adoption is so diverse in emerging countries. Like maybe the best programmers could be in Vietnam or Bandung at that point in time, but agri-tech could be in our countries like us. So it's kind of very diversified. And I spoke a lot about the importance of managing stakeholders. And to me, I thought whatever I said just went over everybody's head. Little did I know when I finished the entire conference, there was a beeline of Asian students lining up to meet and greet me.
Nice.
And these were people that were graduating, going back to their home country at that point in time, and they knew that they had to deal with family. They knew that they deal with government and different stakeholders. And so it's just so important to understand the workings of managing stakeholders. And that really gave me validation about a part of what we do at APW, like just bringing people to the table, getting alignment, and agreeing to make progress. It's a real skill in itself. And I think that was for me, one of the most rewarding, although one of the most quiet and lonely journeys, but it was something that really impacted my life for what I was doing. Yeah.
And of the whole thing that you shared here right now, what did you like about it most?
I like the fact that I got to be in a different environment. I got the fact that I could entertain the thought of having things for myself, which is going back to school, being in the environment. I mean, to some people they say it's like running away, right? But I guess we all kind of validated, like people took interest in your story, like people took interest about what you were doing, and they were genuinely, very interested in what we were coming through. And the fact that it was a rare opportunity,
And in APW, actually, we haven't even talked about it yet.
Yeah.
How it's called right now, and how did you come up with that name?
Interestingly,
there's a story behind that.
There's a story behind APW. So to be honest, when APW was the main acronym of Printing Works, we at that point in time kind of engaged, or we were talking to a branding agency, and they felt that the name was not suitable because it's too related to the space. But obviously there was a commission to do this rebranding exercise, but obviously we had limited resource or budgets to kind of push forward with the agenda, so we didn't. To which they say probably without a good name it might not work, but I just didn't. I just had to manage the capacity that we had. So in the end I stuck with the name APW, and I thought about my acronym about 2-3 years later. But I thought maybe APW could be a place where ... The ... was an open-ended whiteboard canvas for me to dream about how things could be. A place where people could come together, a place where people could connect, where people could dine. So it's always
imagine.
Correct. So actually now all things physical is a place where we're starting to move into the digital and virtual landscape, and we're going to call it also APW as in a platform where you can
fit so many things. Yes. Right? Like people can just make up what they want to do on it.
It's a place where we all hang out. It's a place where we all come together. It's a place where you get to see this or meet that, or cool things happen. So I think the word a place where ... or a place where it has a sense of fluidity.
Exactly.
And that's, I think, in the changing world that we are in now, it still remains quite grounded, I think.
And for you, it's always when people add on something inside like a place where people hang out. Inside of you is always a little tickle and a little smile, right? Nice. So you were coming up with that idea, is it?
I came up with the idea. Yeah.
I think it's fantastic, actually. It shows actually a very creative person, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, it was another sense of validation, and then it just reaffirms the confidence and the certainty that hey, don't worry, you can keep pushing and keep trying new things. And it turned out quite well.
Yeah.
How do you know? How do you know that you, as a concept that you created here, is taking off, that is becoming successful?
So to answer this, it really comes from experience, I would say. On a personal level, whenever I work as a creative, I'm very chaotic. I'm
Chaotic.
yeah, my personal mind and the way I work, I know, is very chaotic. I'm scribbling, I'm writing, I'm drafting, I'm tuning to music, I'm watching different things. I'm just like that. I'm just kind of like putting everything in a pot and just let it germinate, right?
Wow.
And at that point in time, okay, it's time to extract, right? So then I'll extract that. I'm very systematic, right? I have a certain sequence of how, okay, what are the three main things and what do these three main things connect to make it one main thing. Because I'm very clear that when I start engaging external stakeholders or who we want to speak to, we need to then be an effective communicator. So it's kind of like that, and then it kind of streamlines into something very distilled, right?
So you're standing there, just throwing out your ideas,
Yeah, so there'd be two
putting it on
whiteboards,
the
and I
board,
was like, this is what I like, this is what I just write, and then
and then you're stepping back and you start
stepping down.
structuring it.
I got nothing to say, now I just doodle. So then the visuals, like, so if you know...
You're drawing a lot of that.
Yeah, I draw just visual. So if it's supposed to represent a certain theme, a certain energy, I just draw, I just scribble, I just put colors and just see what form and shapes it comes through, right? Because I just feel in the sense of energy, there are different forms and different shapes and the interactions, you know, that comes together. Yeah.
That's quite an interesting concept. Ever thought of writing a book about that? You're brainstorming an approach and then stopping, and because sometimes people are either very creative or others are very procedural, step by step.
Yeah.
And you're both, is it?
I don't know, I mean, there's been some thoughts about writing a book after the project is over.
Is there any memorable experience you had here in your environment, in this creative space, which really told you, yeah, that's really worthwhile doing it?
Yeah, I think the many different moments, small and large. I think for me, most importantly, is that you must remember you started from a printing factory that was dilapidated, and you know at that point in time, your customers were just your print service guys. But over time, over the years, people are coming to consume at your space, coming to chill and to sit. And when you see models taking photos or professional photographers trying to take different
models are coming here as well,
to take looks at different corners, it's like, you know, who would have thought from where it was now and where it is now, people are actually, you know, checking in and thinking that this is a school space.
It is actually. Yeah.
For me, that it's
really worthwhile coming.
Yeah, for me, that's I don't know. It's just very personal. The feeling is just like, wow, you know, it's great what's happening, and we like what we do, and we hope we can continue to do more.
Who's the most famous person ever coming here? Who came here? If you're allowed to share.
yeah, I think, let me try to remember a few people that I think, I know Shawn Mendes came.
Who?
Shawn Mendes, the
Okay.
singer. I think Henry Golding was here when obviously he was doing Crazy Rich Asian. There were some Taiwanese celebrities, I can't remember who.
How will be the future of your space here? Because it's still, even though how many square feet do we have here? You mentioned 70,000 square feet, right?
7,000 square feet, we're nearly filled up. There's probably about 2 or 3 probably tenant combinations that we want, and we're working on that. And we're hoping to unlock next year, mostly from an international sort of platform setting that we're engaging to, because I think we've done a nice curation of independent F&B operators. We've also supported a very nice niche of Malaysian fashion or wellness lifestyle brands. I would like to end on a note of curating some international brands to occupy our space. Then I think as a project, it comes in great totality. And maybe I could get down to writing that book, probably visual and literally together. But the future of APW is something that's really, really beyond my mind. And I've come to realize that APW is both a hardware and a software space. Hardware means the physical space, the outcome of space, but the software is the people that has actually worked on transforming spaces, and we've built good credibility and good strength in how to execute this. And we could be designers, we could be strat planners, we could be analysts, we could be social media guys, and just rebirthing spaces. And that might be this consideration where Soon Wei will consider restructuring certain things, where he might, I don't know, consider looking at the family with, looking at a family office and then managing the assets and regenerating the assets. And then maybe there could be a company that will just spring up with the young talents
and start maybe an advisory firm or consultancy firm.
If somebody else has got a similar idea as you, or has an idea of creating something creative, non yet existing overall, what would be an idea? What would they have to do or think or behave overall in order to make that happen against all resistance, so to speak?
Well, the first thing I'll say to them is all the best and good luck.
Why would you say that?
And then for your second instances, have good faith and pray a lot. I don't know. I would say the fact that if you're going to approach on something like this is something that's not linear, and it's very dynamic, it's very fluid, and there are definitely a lot of moving parts with different weight of different stakeholders. You really must have a strong clarity and your focus on what you're going to be prioritizing yourself on. You have to be also quite systematic, very, very clear what inventory, and learning how to prioritize what the inventory is going to be, what the focus is going to be. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of grit, it's a lot of unsightly work, it's a lot of digging, a lot of things, but through the extraction you distill and you find its purest form, and then you can build on that. But you must be comfortable with that process. And great process comes from really great people. And great people of alignment really comes from how clear you are in terms of communicating and kind of like expressing your vision that people can adopt. So these are things to think about. If you were to say, oh, I want to really feel good looking like this with this project, I think there are other ways to feel good and look good, I would say. Yeah.
Did you have a team when you started up actually, or because it sounds like you were very much the only driver making it happen, and then ultimately with your family there were external partners, friends who did it with you?
The first couple of years was pretty much on my own, in the sense that I had to run what the family was and the business and forming their culture, and there are a lot of blue collar workers and things like. When I could finally start exploring a younger dynamic team, I was also working on project basis with certain people before we could actually form a team. But over the years now, we have found a small and nimble team that's quite effective, and I don't know. I mean, a part of me feels like in the years coming, the team is going to expand. It just seems that the time is ripe and things are coming. The season is turning for the work that we're doing.
I think you're on top of a wave overall of moving into a more creative space, content creator, creative space, creating something out of nothing is kind of like the thing of the day right now, isn't it?
It really does seem like it, because the standard brick and mortar, you build, I build, you sell, I sell, doesn't seem to work as much anymore. Everyone's interested, what is the narrative, what is the story, how are you different, what is your purpose, what are your ESG goals, why are you doing what you're doing. And it's a lot more deliberate in terms of exercising this outputs, right? And I don't know, I thrive in this arena, I'm comfortable in this arena. It's a bit slower, but I think if you're purely wearing a commercial cap, and commercially it might seem very slow. It might seem like, why are we spending so much time talking about this? But I think people are definitely navigating towards more purposeful spaces with a greater intention.
Right. Give me 5 words that would describe you.
5 words that would describe me. Okay, I think I would like to think I'm a bit quite parrot-like, and quite parrot-like.
Parrot-like?
Being like a parrot. And parrots are basically very adaptive animals, right?
Okay.
So they are in environments.
So not the parroting part, but more the adaptation to.
Adapting, and then I guess if they're in this situation, they can adapt. In that situation, they can adapt per se. So quite fluid in that way. But I would like to think I'm quite introspective, reflective. Probably an introvert as well sometimes. I don't mind spending time alone. I enjoy that. I think quite creative and quite strategic, so maybe a creative strategist. I like both. I like the realms of both. I really enjoy those two realms coming together. Probably another part about me is the way I kind of like unwind or distress is by being active. So whether I'm going for a hike, going for a run, or playing tennis, that's how I be engaged. I think if you ask me to, I don't know, like do 3 hours of yoga or meditation, I'll probably have a longer to-do list because my mind keeps, oh, did I do this? Have I finished that?
The mind is running constantly.
Yeah, so otherwise when I expend energy, I get tired, I have a good meal, and I fall and rest and sleep and wake up fresh. I think that's the ideal person in me. I enjoy sleeping early, I enjoy waking up early, so I'm not so much the night owl, you know.
Isn't it amazing how Soon Wei has transformed this place into what it is today? I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I hope and believe you did as well. Now like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, terima kasih, jumpa lagi, and bye bye.